As a doctor of physical therapy who's been coaching professionals through fat loss after 40 for over a decade, I keep seeing the same 5 mistakes wreck people's progress over and over again. The scary part, most of these mistakes don't feel like mistakes. They feel like normal life. That's exactly why they're so dangerous, why we're calling them the silent killer of your progress. Here's the thing. If you keep making even 1 or 2 of these mistakes, you're not just going to stall out. You're going to keep doing everything you think is the right and still watch the scale barely move month after month. If you catch these early, you can actually fix the real problem instead of just forcing your way through another diet that doesn't work. In this video, I'll show you why certain food choices leave you hungry all the time, no matter how much you eat. The tracking mistake that convinces disciplined people that they're barely eating when they're actually eating way more than they think. The 2 training mistakes that quietly wreck your metabolism and set you up for injury. So picture your 20s and your 30s like going for a light jog downhill. You didn't have to fight for much because momentum was on your side. Sleep came easy, recovery came easy, even building a little muscle came easy. You barely had to work for it. Sometime in your 40s, without any warning, the hill kind of flattens out. And then it starts tilting the other way. Nobody sends you an email to tell you this happened. There's no notification that pops up on your phone and says, hey, by the way, you're jogging uphill now. You just keep running the same way you always have, expecting the same easy downhill glide while your body is quietly working against you now instead of with you. That's really what all 5 of these mistakes have in common. None of them show up as big, obvious problems. They show up as small, quiet shifts that you don't notice until you're standing on the scale wondering, what the heck happened? So let's get into the first one because it's probably affecting you right now without you even realizing it. Here's how this one usually starts. You turn 40, life gets busier, work responsibilities they pile up. Maybe you've got kids to shuttle around or you're taking care of aging parents or both. Somewhere in all of that, the food choices you used to make on purpose start turning into food choices you make out of convenience. It doesn't happen all at once. It's not like you wake up one day and decide to eat worse. It's gradual. A bag of chips instead of a real meal here. Fast food on the way home from a late meeting there. It just keeps creeping year after year because you're only getting busier with time. Here's the problem with convenience food. It's almost always low in protein. Low in protein isn't just a muscle problem. It's actually a hunger problem. Protein has a direct effect on the hormones that tell your brain you're full. When you're not getting enough of it, your body doesn't send that "we're satisfied" signal the way it's supposed to. You eat, 20 minutes later, you're already thinking about your next meal. This is why so many people in their 40s tell me the same thing. I feel like I'm eating all day and I'm still hungry. It's not in your head. It's not a willpower issue. It's biology. Low protein means your fullness hormones never really kick in. The hunger keeps showing up no matter how good you're trying to be. The fix here is actually simple, even if it's not always easy to execute with a packed schedule. You don't need to overhaul everything you eat. You need to make sure protein is the anchor of your meals, especially the convenient ones. A protein shake beats a granola bar. A rotisserie chicken from the grocery store beats a drive-through burger. Small swaps, same convenience, completely different hormonal response. Here's the second mistake. This one I see almost as often as the first. People stop prioritizing sleep. Here's the part most people miss. It's usually not because they're trying to binge a show or scroll on their phone for no reason. It's because they've never built any time earlier in the day to actually wind down and relax. Work bleeds into the evening. Family obligations, they fill up every hour. By the time they finally get a quiet moment to themselves, it's 10 or 11 at night. That quiet moment starts eating into what should have been sleep. Sleep becomes the thing that gets sacrificed, not because it doesn't matter to them, but because nothing else got sacrificed first. This creates two real problems. The first is mental. When you're running on too little sleep, your capacity for willpower and decision-making takes a big hit. You get brain fog. That brain fog shows up right when you need to make a good food choice, right when you need the discipline to skip the drive-through or turn down the office donuts. You've got less in the tank to work with. The second problem is metabolic. There's a study out of the University of Pennsylvania that put healthy adults through 5 nights of restricted sleep, just 4 hours a night, measured their resting metabolic rate the next morning. It dropped. Their bodies were burning fewer calories at rest simply from being underslept. You could be eating the exact same way and still see less progress, just because your sleep debt is quietly working against you. The fix isn't complicated. It does require a shift. Instead of treating your wind down time as whatever is left after everything else is done, build it earlier and protect it like an appointment. Even 20 or 30 minutes of intentional relaxation before your usual bedtime routine can be enough to stop you from unconsciously stealing that time away from your sleep. When you protect that time, you protect your sleep. When you protect your sleep, you protect your willpower and your metabolism, the two things you need most to actually make progress. Here's mistake number 3. This one catches even the most disciplined people off guard. Inaccurate tracking. I had a client who was tracking her calories and her macros religiously, or so she thought. She came to me feeling defeated, telling me she was barely eating 1,400 calories a day and still not losing weight. I believed that she believed that. She wasn't lying to me. She just wasn't seeing the full picture. We went through everything together, not just her 3 meals a day, but the little bites while she was cooking dinner, the samples at the grocery store, the few sips of her kids' juice, the handful of nuts on her way out the door, the weekend where she kind of tracked, but not really. None of those felt like they counted. Individually, they're tiny. A bite here, a sip there. When you actually add it all up, she was shocked. Those small, uncounted moments were adding hundreds of calories to her day, enough to completely erase her calorie deficit she thought she had. I call those ghost calories. They're the calories that are absolutely real, absolutely counted by your body, never make it into the log. Because you can't see them, they're impossible to manage. Ghost calories don't feel like a mistake in the moment. That's actually why they're so dangerous. Honestly, this isn't a her problem. Research on self-reported food intake consistently shows the same pattern. People underestimate what they eat. Often significantly. It's not because they're being dishonest. It's because most of us were never taught to see food that way. If it's not a meal on a plate, it doesn't register as eating. Now, here's what I didn't do with her. I didn't tell her to stop snacking. She loved her little nibbles throughout the day. Taking that away from her, it wasn't realistic or necessary. Instead, we built small planned nibbles into her actual plan. She kept doing what she loved. We just made sure it showed up on paper this time. That's really the takeaway here. The goal isn't to eliminate every bite and sip. It's to hunt down those ghost calories and get them on record, because you can't manage what you're not actually seeing. The gap between what you think you're eating and what you're actually eating is exactly where progress disappears. Mistake 4 is skipping resistance training altogether. This one has a domino effect on everything else we've already talked about. Here's what happens when you're in a calorie deficit without any resistance training. Your body doesn't just pull from fat stores to make up the difference. It pulls from muscle too. Over time, in a deficit without a reason to hold on to that muscle, your body will happily let it go. So why does this matter so much? Because muscle is metabolically expensive. It burns more calories than fat does just sitting there doing nothing. The more muscle you're carrying, the more calories you burn around the clock, not just during workouts. Now follow this chain of reaction with me. More muscle means more calories burned. More calories burned means it's easier to create a calorie deficit without starving, which means you get to eat more food while still losing fat, which means you're less hungry throughout the whole process, which means you're more likely to actually stick with it long enough to see results. Skip resistance training, that entire cycle works against you instead of for you. You lose muscle along with fat. Your metabolism gets slower. The deficit that used to work now requires more and more restriction just to keep producing the same results. That's the trap so many people over 40 fall into without realizing resistance training was ever the missing piece. The fix is straightforward, even if it feels intimidating if you haven't done it before. You don't need to become like a bodybuilder like yours truly. You need 2 to 3 resistance training sessions a week, hitting major muscle groups with enough intensity to actually challenge the muscles. That's it. That alone protects the muscle you have and keeps your metabolism strong while the number on the scale goes down. The 5th mistake is one I know a little too well because I've lived it myself. Training like you're still in your 20s. For a long time, I trained like I was still in college. I skipped warm-ups because they felt like a waste of time. I ignored the little mobility issues and strength imbalances I was building up because none of that felt as important as just chasing those gains. I wanted the results. I didn't want to slow down to deal with none of that boring stuff. Here's what actually happens when you train that way in your 40s. Skipping warm-ups raises your risk of injury, plain and simple. And ignoring your mobility, strength, stability impairments doesn't make them go away. It just gives them time to get worse until they eventually show up as real pain. That's exactly what happened to me. I started accumulating injury after injury. Not one big dramatic moment, just a slow buildup, the same way all these mistakes tend to sneak up on you. Eventually, I got to the point where I was struggling to train around those injuries. I lost my motivation basically completely. Without training or motivation, I gained fat. Now, what turned it around wasn't some new workout program. It was a mindset shift. I started treating myself like I would treat one of my patients. I addressed the impairments instead of training through them. I gave my body what it actually needed to heal instead of like pushing through the pain. Once I did that, I healed up. I lost the fat. That transformation ended up winning me the $100,000 transformation challenge. Humble brag. But I only got there because I finally stopped ignoring my body instead of fighting it. If you're still training like you're in your 20s, skipping warm-ups, pushing through nagging pain instead of actually addressing it, this is your sign. Warm up properly before every session. Pay attention to the mobility and stability issues you've been ignoring. Fix the small stuff now before it becomes the big stuff that takes you out the gym completely. Those 5 mistakes are quiet on their own, but stack them together over a few years, they're the real reason why so many people over 40 feel like they're doing everything right and still not seeing results. None of this happened overnight. Fixing it won't either. Every one of these is fixable once you actually see it. Honestly, this is the kind of stuff I talk about every week. Small shifts that actually work for your 40s, not the noise everyone else is chasing. If this helped you, hit subscribe. That way you won't miss what's coming next.